This film is a perfect example of why I never take boxes when anyone tries to hand it to me. I'm here with the director and screenwriter of the upcoming film Bishop's Cove. He is Charles D. Lincoln, and this Slasher Sports Cinema.
And I'm here to kill you.
I am Dracula.
Say that I have shed innocent blood. What's blood for, if not for shedding?
6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face, the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes.
I like to dissect girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane?
Charles.
Hey,
D.
how's
Lincoln.
it going?
It is going famously. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. I actually was I love the intro. I was, like just the little quotes you have on there. I was like speaking along with Patrick Bateman and Dr. Loomis.
Love to dissect girls. That's
don't
we all?
Yeah, don't you know I'm totally insane? And I love Psycho. Yeah.
I just love to splice my, a random fave lines, I guess. Maybe differently than the previous intro. That intro music is done by my good friend Jack Fiddler, who, if you've listened to this podcast any number of times, is going to be associated with the likes of those trauma fools. And hopefully those guys are going to chime in sometime tonight. But listen, Charles, did you know that on this day in horror movie history, the likes of Silence of the Lambs, Silent Scream, Bad Girls from Mars, Deep Rising, Final Destination 2, and The Uninvited were released?
Oh, cool. Yeah,
and
no,
I
did not know that. No.
You didn't know, but there's a reason I bring that up. Because I kind of liked what you said a few days back. It was about remaking films, and I don't want to misquote.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you said something along the lines of how films being remade today are the films that really didn't need remaking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of making films that were great in idea but poor in execution. Do you want to expound on that? Because I don't want to misquote
what I was saying is that basically, at this point now, as a filmmaker, that eventually you're going to be asked to, do a remake of some port. And if you were to ask me what remakes I would want to do, it's all movies that I don't actually think were great films. Because there's no reason to remake a really, really good movie. You're not going to do it better. You're not going to, and number one, you're going to really, upset the fan base of the original film,
the faithfuls,
for one, because that's who made that film big in the first place. And unless it's very rare occasions, for the most part, they're just gonna hate what you do. And so you're not really earning any points there. You're not going to make a better film. So why even bother to do it? What you should do is take a movie that had a really cool concept, that something could be done with, that something, that didn't have a great execution. And that's, if I was ever going to remake a thing, I said it would be a whole bunch of movies that people would be like, why would you want to remake that? That wasn't even a very good movie. But I was like, but the concept, the thought of what I could do with that concept and the general, outline of what that movie was. And then I could actually make a good film out of it, So
I love that you said that, because it's something that's been on my mind. We don't even have to look at the horror genre. We can look at films that were just fun in general. Did we need to revisit Bill and Ted? No, we didn't.
Yeah.
Did we need to revisit Dumb and Dumber? No, we didn't. What else has been done recently? shit, like we really didn't need a couple of these latest Godzilla flicks as much as I love them.
Yeah.
It, if we would go in the direction of like Shin Godzilla
Hmm.
instead of what we have going on here in the States,
Yeah.
I would be so happy with that. Shin Godzilla swallows up anything, and I never thought I'd catch myself saying this.
Yeah.
It swallows up anything that the American studios have done.
One of the
And
things, yeah, I was going to say, one of the things I hate about the American Godzilla films is that I'll be honest, I don't go to Godzilla film to see the human characters. I don't care about them. The last thing in the world I want is Godzilla fighting a thing on a TV in the background of a scene with a whole bunch of characters that I don't care about at all. The whole movie's focusing on them, and Godzilla, sure, the last like 20, 30 minutes, you get the big battle, but up until then, I don't care. I want to see Godzilla destroy stuff.
we have like a big soap opera, and it is very cool to me that they bring back a few of the characters from the classic Showa series, like Dr. Serizawa. Cool, we need him.
Yeah.
I want those little twins that follow Mothra around everywhere.
Oh yeah.
I want those people. I don't want the little girl from Stranger Things.
Yeah.
I want the dad from Super 8. And I don't know. I eventually believe they're going to fit the whole cast of Stranger Things in there somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I love Bryan Cranston. I don't go to see a Godzilla movie to see Bryan Cranston.
No, even though he was great, and he was coming right off the heat of Breaking Bad at the time.
Yeah, and he's wonderful, but he's not why I'm going to see Godzilla. I'm going to see Godzilla because I want to see a city get destroyed. I want to just see the Roland Emmerich spectacle of just rampant destruction.
And so how often do you believe the remake is actually better than the original? Not to put you on the spot.
I can honestly, there's only one movie that I think is, and everyone will hate me for that. Actually, no, there's a couple times. There's been some bad movies that had good remakes. Like I despise the original I Spit on Your Grave. I think it's horrible. I hate that movie so incredibly much. And I think the remake actually did it. They took the concept and did it in a fairly more tasteful way and was done a lot better. And I'm like, okay, this is not something I would, choose to watch on a Friday night over and over again. But I was like, this wasn't a bad movie. I also,
I Spit on Your Grave is like, I hate it for the reasons that, we're big on trigger warnings in the year of our Lord 2023, tongue in cheek. But I don't hate it for the reasons that, I'm not triggered by anything in the film.
Yeah.
It's just a terrible, ugly film.
Yeah.
And it was poorly done, poorly cast, poorly written, and it was a shock value film.
Yeah.
And that's fine, because back then that's what we were doing. It's hard to top Cannibal Holocaust as a shock value film, but they they were going to try. But I'm with you. There are not very many, I guess, instances where the remake is better than the original. But if we have to point at a few, we're looking at The Thing. We're looking at that's the obvious one to me.
Yeah, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, The Fly.
The Fly. Okay, thank you. I'm glad you said The Fly, because I didn't want to have to say it myself.
Yeah,
but you're right though, and it was kind of thought provoking and made me wonder. What film would Charles D. Lincoln remake if he had his choice?
Oh man, well, right off the top of my head, just because I was like, this is an awful movie, but I could do so much with the concept because I'm just generally messed up in the head. I was like, I could do Blood-Sucking Freaks. Was the very first one that popped into my head, and I was like, if you've seen my stuff, you kind of see the aesthetic of what I could bring to a film like that, and take that concept and actually make it into something serious, and not just cheesy little Ralphus, throwing darts at people's butts, and that was one that immediately occurred to me. Then there was also people love to do the let's take a foreign film and make an American version of that, which for the most part I don't feel is necessary, but I don't know if it's a Japanese series called MPD Psycho from Takashi Miike. And
Mike is, I mean, already one of my favorite guys, you
Mhm.
know, and I mean, I guess if we're talking about aesthetics,
yeah.
I like your, thought of blood-sucking freaks.
hmm
I really do.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. And that's the thing with Mickey. One of the reasons why that was a particular property that I would love to do an American version, is because in the canon, something happens, and it happened in both America and Japan, and his version only covers Japan. And my whole thought is, if I were to do it, I would totally make his version still canon. And it's just, well, let's cover what's happening in America. And yeah, we take some scenes, we take some homages, we take, but it's still kind of reflecting what, it's while maintaining complete respect to what he did. It would also be, doing that. But yeah, there's stuff, there's a bunch of movies that, as I said, I think something could be done with. Oh man, God, I don't know. For some reason, I'm drawing a blank because I keep Deadly Spawn keeps popping in my head, but I love Deadly Spawn, so I'm not
Well,
sure why. Like,
let's fantasy cast something there. Let's fantasy
Yeah.
cast blood-sucking freaks. Who are you casting in that film if you're remaking it today?
oh well, I mean, that would require me to actually know the characters' names, except for Sabu and Ralphus. So
That's
know
that's
there's-
enough for me.
Yeah,
Who's Sabu then?
honestly, I think I could do fucking. I'm sorry, I didn't know if I'm allowed to curse or not. Am I?
Come on, of course you can. What?
Okay, then fuck it. All right,
This is-
cool.
yeah, fuck it.
I forgot to ask. Yeah, if I.
We're not cleaning shit up around here.
Okay, cool. Yeah. But yeah, no, I was like, like someone like, I mean, that seems like a role that I was like, oh, I could do so well. Like I have that just natural, I don't know. I play a lot of scumbags. I realize that, and not just
You don't say.
yeah, not just in the stuff that I write, and like other people. In fact, it's really funny. I'm doing a film in April. I don't know if I'm allowed to announce it or not, but they offered me 2 roles, and the first role they gave was like, you're always complaining about how you always do these scumbag characters, so we gave you this really nice. And I read the script, and I was like, I mean, I guess I could do that. And then there's just this utter piece of shit other character, and I'm like, but I could do that guy in my sleep. And they're like, do you want to be that guy? I'm like, okay, yes, I'll play that character instead. Because I don't know, it's just, I mean, I sometimes complain about kind of being awful people over and over again, but it's so much more fun. It's so much more fun to be the bad guy, and just to bring out that kind of dark side of of humanity into your roles,
Everybody wants to play the heel, man.
Yeah.
Everybody
yeah.
wants to play the heel. Just look at it, or in the world of hell, professional wrestling. Somewhere along the way, we all started cheering for Stone Cold Steve Austin, did we not?
Yeah.
We weren't supposed to.
Well, that was the thing. As a little kid, I was such a fan of heels. Like I was the one little kid who would like hated Hulk Hogan, and like I loved Roddy Piper, and I was just all in on heel characters like my entire time. And there's a whole bunch of people who I think are really annoying when they're faces that I love when they're heels, like Jericho, Edge, people like that. I'm like, the New Day, I am so incredibly sick of them and I hate them so much. But when they were heels, I loved them. They were just amazing as heels.
You brought up Jericho, and Jericho was probably, I was not a kid who cheered on the heels. Was not. Now I'm thinking like, the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
Mid 90s comes around, and I'm definitely doing that. And I think the first one might have been Jericho in WCW.
Yeah.
When he was purposely getting, and he was purposely getting people's names wrong.
Yeah.
And where Dean Malenko was the man of 1,000 holds.
Yes.
Jericho said he went home and he learned 4 more holds. So he is now the man of 1,004 holds.
Yes. By the way, Ralph is named after the character in Blood-Sucking Freaks, by the way.
That is a fact. Yeah. There's a lot of homages you're going to get out of Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
There was like when he couldn't find his way to the ring, that's a direct ripoff from Spinal Tap. Fantastic. I mean, he's a rocker, he's a horror guy. I mean, he is our type of professional wrestler.
Yeah.
No matter which way you cut it.
Yeah.
But thinking about that, you have a pretty interesting background yourself.
Oh yeah. I mean,
okay,
my father was F.J. Lincoln, Fred Lincoln, who was in the horror community known for being Weasel in Last House on the Left,
Yes.
Wes Craven's very first film. And then he got that role. You know, a lot of people are like, why do you do more horror stuff? And, you know, everyone loved Last House on the Left in the horror community. And he got a ton of offers for like all these different roles. But of course, my dad was in his like, well, I've already done my horror role now. It's time for me to be Al Pacino. And none of those roles came. But speaking of came, he was then had the guy.
God damn it.
Segway King. But so he said someone came up to him and was like, hey, do you want to get paid to fuck? And he's like, I do. And so he went into the porn industry and became a legend of the porn industry for about 30, 40 years. Even got an AVN award for that. And I grew up with my porn director father who had met my mother at Plato's Retreat, which was a swingers club. And so that was my upbringing. And then, I grew up in Hell's Kitchen for the first 4 years of my life. So I'm like one of the old school, you know, when New York was Taxi Driver, like that was,
Sure.
you know, me as a little kid. And it's very funny. Like people talk about that time. It's such a scary, scary time. And for me, it was just, you know, my world. Like, you know, my dad, you know, I mean, because Times Square was the center of all like, you know, the dens of inequity at the time. So my dad was like known by all like the pimps and the hookers and the gang members and everything. And all these people that everyone would think were frightening. You know, my dad would be walking down the street. They'd be like, yo, Freddie, what's up? And, you know, going to me like, hey, little man, give me some skin. And, you know, so I'd be like slapping hands with like, you know, people who would, you know, most tourists would be afraid they get stabbed by, you know, as a little kid. And then like later on, you know, it was very funny when I became an adult and I started like going to fetish clubs, and I went to one that's no longer there called Hellfire. And I used to be able to get in for free because the Hells Angels were security. My dad used to get them, you know, used to fix them up with girls and stuff. So, you know,
Sure.
yeah. So it was, it's kind of neat. Like all those, you know, the fact that I like bikers and porn and all this, like I had that very non-traditional, you know, world. And then at a certain point, I was, you know, I went and lived with my grandmother in Long Island. So that was a very religious household and very weird. And for me, it was like, oh, I hate quiet and I hate all this, you know, like the sound of crickets annoy me. And I need like, you know, cars beeping horns and police sirens and all that. Like that was, you know, for me, like my lullaby, you know. But yeah, I grew up with my dad in porn, and but my dad also was very he had a love of cinema, and it was very important to him that I did too. Like when I was a little kid, he would make me you know, and he used to make me, but I never minded it, and I do it now. He used to make me like stay during the credits because he wanted me to know that everyone in the film were, you know, that you don't see were just as important as the people that you do see on the screen. And he used to get me all like the old Starlog magazines that showed how like they did all the practical effects and everything.
Yes.
So, you know, he did just, it was a weird upbringing, but I mean, you know, and, you know, as I said, I spent a lot of my time as like good deal of my life. I was like, you know, a musician, like metal and punk bands and living crazy lifestyle myself and, you know, doing all the rock star stories that, you know what, even if you're in a little local band, that shit still happens, you know? And like, as long as it's, you know, in a local band in New York, it still happens, you know? And it was, and then when he passed away, I had been kind of, I became deaf in one ear because of a condition I have. And not through music. That's the crazy thing. All this loud music didn't do anything. If I had never gone into music, I still would have gone deaf.
Was going to ask.
Yeah. And so that's when it was like, you know, my dad always kind of wanted me to go into film. And so around that time, I was asked to be in a music video, which, you know, normally I'd done one for my own band, but I'm just like one of the people in the background or whatever. And I was like, that was a lot of fun. I should be getting paid to do that. And I started going into acting from there. And, you know, and I took Lincoln as my last name, you know, my stage name, kind of my little tribute to him.
Sure.
You know, because
sure.
he was, I mean, my dad was, you know, he was very, very responsible for a lot of, you know, my love of film and just how much like I respect the medium and just, you know, and 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 as I said, it's he was a he was a character, like for all the weird shit I've done, there's so many times where I feel boring because I've never like like some of the stories he told that I'm not sure if I could tell, like for legal sakes. But
I was gonna say, yeah, don't
yeah,
don't get the fuzz on
yeah,
me.
exactly. So I'm like, but some of the stories he told, I was like, wow, I've never even done that, and it's um, it was it was a crazy life. Like he was married like 8 times or something like that, and it was just. I remember at one point I was 25 and he was dating a 23-year-old, and I was just like, and I hated her. She was stupid. And just, I understood why my dad was sleeping with her because she was hot, but she was stupid. And like,
just the way we like them.
Yeah,
right? Just the way we like them.
I like smart women. I like women who are like smart and like fierce and But
yeah, because I make stupid decisions. I don't need two of us doing it.
Yeah, I kind of like someone who can, who has a brain because I remember I've met girls who like were super hot who turned me off because they were just dumb. And like I think
it happens every day, man.
Yeah,
every day.
Yeah, like I mean, of course not when drunk, because when you're drunk, you don't care how dumb anyone is. But
no, of course
not. Sober, yeah, when you're sober, oh my god, like it's the biggest turn off in the world is for a girl to be stupid.
And I guess when you're that hammered, like every girl seems like I don't know, just a genius.
Yeah. Well,
they can all parallel park, and
well, that was
they all underreact.
Yeah,
I don't know.
To me, that was one of the funniest things when I lost my hearing, because it's a condition called Meniere's disease, and I remember having a beer and my good ear started ringing, and I'm like, oh shit, I can't drink anymore. So I didn't drink for 3 years. Until one night, I was looking at a forum for people with Meniere's disease, which I'd never, ever thought of even looking at for like 3 years. And I was like, let me see what other people with my condition have to say about stuff. And it was like, oh, I can actually drink hard liquor. It's just the malts and beer that make my ears bad. And so I'm like, oh, okay. And immediately when I got drunk that night and was calling up my guitar player like at like 3 a.m, guess what I'm doing?
Like, how long ago was that?
Oh man, that was about 10 years ago. About 10 years ago, because I've been actually no, yeah, it was 12 years because I've been in film for 10 years now.
So about 2010.
Yeah,
we've got Google. Maybe we haven't perfected Google.
Yeah,
we're still learning about ourselves, especially at this age.
Yeah,
and you kind of just assume that, well, all of my afflictions, I might as well just live with them and never look into them.
Yeah, well, that was the whole thing. Is like I was just like I mean. It's not like I absolutely needed to be drunk all the time. Like, I mostly just drank as a, like after shows or at clubs or whatever. So, I mean, because I know how addictive that can be if you start, I will never drink by myself. That's like one of the rules that I have. I will never be by because to me, that's when you're becoming an alcoholic. When you're like, I'm just going to have myself a whiskey when there's no one else in the room. And
for breakfast.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Oh my God. When I lived in London, I was pretty much buzzed every single day there because like they'd start having beer at like 9 a.m. over there. And I remember.
Well, that's because you were on, USA time. So
yeah. Well, like the girl that I was staying with over there at, the first morning I'm there, she like offers me a beer and I'm like, it's 9 a.m. And she's like, she's like,
here's some eggs with it.
Yeah. She's like, it's a morning beer. I'm like, where I come from, you start drinking this early, kind of means you're an alcoholic. And she's
it means you go to meetings.
Yeah. Over here, she's like, over here, we just call it being English. I'm like, all right, I guess I'll start.
So she pretty much like tough talked you into it, like almost shamed you. It was like, you fucking American, you just drink your beer.
Hey, I was it wasn't like she had to like twist my arm about it, but I was like, all right, fine, I'll drink it, whatever.
She started making a whole lot of sense, didn't she?
Yes. And I mean, I'm who am I to turn down free beers and especially as a guest in their country.
When in Rome,
yes.
Do as the Romans do, sir.
Yes. So that means I ride a Vespa and pinch a lot of asses then, because that's what the Romans
wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have it any other way. But hey, listen, your pops gave you the philosophy, but what did you get technically? from your, I guess I want to call it your pedigree.
Mhm.
What did you get that you could actually quantify with technique? Like what makes the Lincoln bloodline noticeable in film? What are you doing?
Well, it's hard to talk about his stuff because his stuff was porn, and I didn't really check most of his stuff out. But with
I
me,
guess I mean
yeah,
X's and O's. Like, what are
yeah.
you doing technically that
Uh,
maybe you learned?
well, I think one of the things that he always was very that he also emphasized to me when because that's the thing, I never directed anything when he was alive, and
Okay.
when I was in college for film, I will never mention what college I went to because I think they did such a shitty job. Um, it killed my love of cinema for a while. I was just like, I don't belong in this industry. I'll just focus on music,
Sure.
because it was just so discouraging, like the way that we were working and just some of the professors I had. And, like I learned more watching making of featurettes on DVDs than I feel I did in like the 2 years I went before I eventually like dropped out of college. Like I feel I learned so much, and you know what the best film school in the world is working on a set. Best watching what other people do. Like I don't care if you're an extra, I don't care if you're a PA, whatever. Watch what people are doing. Pay attention to what the crew are doing. Pay attention to what the director is doing. Pay attention to the AD, all these people, and kind of just see what the ecosystem of a set is. Like I it's one of the things that like I feel that like everyone should try to do something where they are behind the camera just so they can learn what things do, like learn what the grips do, learn what the gaffers do, learn the difference between between grips and gaffers, and between what the director of photography does as opposed what different cameras do and what the different lenses are, like just all of those things, like I feel it's so important to know these things so that you can see how the sausage is made, like really. And it's in one way it was bad for me because I've never been scared by a movie because I know since I was a little kid how they work, even though I've loved horror. Like as a little kid, one of my favorite movies was The Omen. And when like you're a little kid and you have that like song that gives you like nostalgic feelings and
Yes.
you think of being a child. And for me, it's Ave Satani because I used to watch that.
Because why not?
Yeah, I used to watch that movie so much and be like upset that like my babysitter never tried to hang herself and be like, it's all for you, Charles. So it's like but yeah, I loved that. First movie I ever saw was Alien. And I just got such appreciation. Rosemary's Baby and The Exorcist and all those sort of movies. Those were like the movies of my childhood. And sure, there was Star Wars and Indiana Jones and all that sort of stuff. But it was horror stuff. I saw way more horror than I ever did like cartoons or Disney films or anything like that as a child.
At what age did you see Alien?
Well, I mean, if you really want to get technical, I saw Alien in the theater when I was a baby, and my parents were being irresponsible by bringing probably a crying kid into the theater. But
Or responsible.
Yeah. The first time I remember seeing Alien, I was probably 5 or 6.
Okay, around the time that I saw Friday the 13th Part 2.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I recently spoke to Karen Lamb, and if you're not familiar with Karen Lamb, she's a Canadian gal.
Mm-hmm.
She just directed the newest installment of the Bring It On series. Yes, the cheerleading flick.
The slasher one. Yeah.
The slasher one. Cheer or Die is what that one was called.
Yeah.
And she told me a story about how her father took her to see her first horror flick, and it was Jaws. And, she asked, well, why did you take me to see Jaws? And he said, well, because I knew you liked fish. True story. But there's always a reason. Always a reason. And there's always something you take from it. We might not see maybe the the allegories.
Yeah.
Maybe we watched Rosemary's Baby and we just thought there was a fucked up kid in the cradle. We didn't see we didn't read between the lines. We saw the people under the stairs. We didn't think about classism, right?
Yeah.
We just see there's spooky guys in the basement.
Well, yeah. Well,
But
yeah.
just going back to your childhood, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it really drew a map here
Mm-hmm.
to what we have today. And speaking of the textbook that you're reading while you are on set, let's talk about, I believe it is your first directorial set.
Yes. Yes. Bishop's Cove.
Teresa and Allison.
Teresa and Allison was directed by Jeremiah Kipp. I wrote it, and
I'm sorry, the first one that you wrote. I'm sorry.
Yes, that was the first one I wrote
Okay.
and produced.
Yeah,
Yes.
first feature anyway.
Yes.
So you wrote this thing, and it was released in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
It's a modern vampire tale.
Mm-hmm.
It explores a side of vampirism that we don't often see in film, and that's the recently turned, and who hasn't learned to navigate the vampire world just yet. They're still walking like that newborn fawn,
Mm-hmm.
just stumbling around the vampire world. Again, directed by Jeremiah Kipp, who I've recently met online, I believe. And did you have some kind of input on the directorial, I guess, the direction of the film since you wrote it? Like, I guess there's always a fear for me writing that
Mm-hmm.
someone's going to take my writing and they're going to distort it into something that I don't necessarily want.
Yeah, I was AD on that set, so I was there
Excellent.
to make sure that that number one, Jeremiah and I we talked about a bunch of things beforehand. Obviously, I let even as producer, I still deferred to him as director.
Sure.
But if there was something that I absolutely felt the movie needed, I would be like, hey, we need to shoot this thing here,
Yeah.
But for the most part, it was his show. A lot of the edit was more me. In fairness, I'll say I would probably, if I was editing it now, I would probably make it about 10 minutes shorter in the beginning. Just because there's a montage that I look at and I'm like, I probably could stand to cut that montage now.
Okay.
But otherwise, yeah, it was my first experience, with the feature. I had run into Jeremiah, and he was an extra on Hello. Hold on one second.
It's Jeremiah.
Hold on one second. Yeah, no. Sorry, there was someone calling on.
Hey, listen, if you need to take it,
Oh no, it's not even for me. It was not for me.
I can bullshit my way through this thing. I've been doing it
it's not for me.
for years now.
It knocked me off there, and it's something that she's gonna be very annoyed when she finds out that person called and is bothering.
Oh man, yeah,
yeah.
There's gonna be hell to pay.
Yeah. I'll tell her when I'm done with the interview, and she'll be like, "God damn it."
Yeah, they haven't heard the last of me.
Yeah, but yeah,
all I gotta say about it.
But yeah, no, he was an extra on was it Jennifer Valdez? Jennifer Valdez directed a short I wrote, and we were looking for corpses. And she knew Jeremiah, and Jeremiah was like, "Oh, I've never been a corpse before. It sounds like it'll be easy." And he was not. And he was there, and he was just like, "Wow, you have a really deranged imagination. We should work on something." And that's a couple months later, I was meeting with an old friend of my father's because I was thinking of going of that's when I was starting to look into going into film.
Mm-hmm.
And he had and as far as like I'd already been doing stuff, but as far as making my own stuff. And so he said to me, he's like, "Have you ever thought of doing like a lesbian vampire film?" And my immediate first thought, because at the time it was
Haven't we all?
Yeah, well, the funniest part was at the time, it's like when Twilight and all that were all, big. And so
okay.
my first thought was, why the fuck would I want to do that? And then that night it started going in my head, but it's like, you used to love vampire films before they became this formulaic little PG-13, like bloodless,
sparkly fucks.
Yeah, teenage romance bullshit. And it's like, why don't you make a vampire film that speaks to you, something like the stuff that you like Near Dark, and like that was the big, like Near Dark and The Hunger. Those were the two big influences on that one. On that one with me. And what I love about it, and it's one thing that Jeremiah always said about the movie, is that he says it's less a vampire film and more Maniac meets Alice in Wonderland. And I've always loved that.
I can dig that.
Yeah, because
And this film is it can I don't know what the word is. What's the adverb? Canonistically?
Yeah.
Canonically
Canonically.
part of, there you go.
Yes.
Part of the same universe as another work of yours.
Mm-hmm.
Correct? Tell me about that.
Yes. Well, 21st Century Demon Hunter. Actually, everything I've done so far is all in the same universe.
Even the subject of what we're talking about right today.
Yes, 21st Century Demon Hunter is because Tony from Teresa and Allison, my character, I have an episode where I show up and 21st Century Demon Hunter. Just because one of the things that's great with 21st Century Demon Hunter, it was a novel I wrote, and Chelsea, my now business partner, who helped me co-produce Teresa and Allison and Demon Hunter, and she also stars in Demon Hunter and is the antagonist in Bishop's Cove, the demonic antagonist. Yes. She had auditioned for something that actually she didn't get, but the way she put down her chair in the audition made me think of this character in the novel that I was writing. And so I was like, oh, let me ask her if she wants to maybe model for the cover of the novel. And so we had a meeting at Barnes & Noble. We were all talking and everything. And she's like, and I let her read an early version of the novel. And she's like, wow, this is really great. Have you ever thought of doing a web series about this? And I was like, I haven't. But now, once again, that thing with me, you put a tiny idea in my head. Then literally the next day I emailed her 6 scripts of episodes that I had thought of like that night. And yeah. It's my 21st Century Demon Hunter to me is like, as another person put it, it's Buffy meets Fleabag. It's basically this, it's this like just promiscuous, drug using, like underachieving person from a long line of demon hunters who her goals in life are getting high, drunk, and laid. But she's also really good at fighting stuff. She just doesn't really want to go through the effort a lot of the time. So it's. And it's where I get to, it's a little bit of comedy. It has, I mean, it's a lot of comedy in there, but it's where I get to call out a lot of horror tropes, and I get to have a little bit of fun with it. And our Jason character who keeps showing up, and where she charged people. She was hired to go to Camp Amethyst Lake, which was my little little Friday 13th homage there. And like I said, it was really fun to do. And it kind of was what Chelsea and I bonded on, is just, we would do it like guerrilla style. We would, because we wanted it to have that low budget, lo-fi, because Julie's kind of this gritty punk chick. So we were like, let's not make it all slick and pretty and everything. And let's make it all like dark and gritty. And the newer season of it, which should be coming out around June or so, is more professionally produced because we have her now dealing with like gods and stuff. So it's now in a bigger world. We felt that the production should reflect that. But yeah, the first one, it comes out on DVD and Blu-ray in the middle of February, I'm told. 21st
right around
century,
the corner.
Yeah, 21st Century Demon Hunter. It's coming out from Burning Bulb Media, and it should be available in same way with Teresa and Allison. At any place that sells DVDs, it'll be available. And if it isn't there, you can order it Virgin Megastore. That's closed 20 years ago. I don't know why that popped into my head, but
did it though? I don't know if it did.
Did it? There's still Virgin Megastores? Maybe in England, but I don't know about America.
Shit, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, that's going to require a future Google search.
Yeah. I'm going to Google that when I get off. But Walmart and Barnes and Noble and Amazon and all those places where people get their DVDs, they'll be able to pick it up. And it's 13 episodes where it's just violence and sex and madness. And just, my favorite episode is probably the one where she just, I don't know how many of them, if you saw all of them, I sent you the link, but my favorite episode is, the 2 favorite episodes is the one with the possessed laptop. That's one of my favorites, where it's a computer virus, but it's, and then the other one is where she just takes a whole shitload of acid, and then the episode just goes into my David Lynch tribute, where I just am like, it's my tribute to the 3rd season of Twin Peaks, where he just went all weird and surreal with everything. And
yes,
yeah, that was my idea for that episode, was let's just go as weird as we can with this. And a lot of us shooting at 5 a.m. in Prospect Park, and just like her, running up and down on one of the actors' apartments is where we shot one scene where she's just naked except for a cardboard box running up the stairs with like a Ziploc bag with shit in it. And it's just like this weird, hell, we spent $70 for that one particular politician's voice clip on there that for that episode. Where
I fucking love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. Like it was just like all this weird, like just all these like stream of consciousness stuff. And it's what I love about writing Julie is that her stuff, as much of the cosmic horror as we're now putting into it, it's still just stream of consciousness, and like, whatever ideas pop into my head tend to go in there, because she's a very random character, but she's also, and Chelsea plays her brilliantly. Chelsea just has this like manic, insane energy to her. And Julie is, and what I love is that Julie is not necessarily the nicest person in the world either. And Chelsea is able to ride that like little thing where people don't hate her, but they're like, well, she's really not a nice person actually. And, and she's kind of an anti-hero. And I love that. And Julie is just so much fun to write. I'm writing the second novel and I can't wait for people to read that. That one, I go insane with it. And I'm once again, really into the cosmic horror stuff. And it's going to be just madness. And I love that. And then, like I said, we have the other season coming in like May or June, where we're going to
of this year.
Yeah. This year. Yeah.
Perfect.
Because that's the thing, like we could have put it out at the same time, but then it's like they cannibalize each other's sales, and like all the marketing people talk to me about all this sort of thing. And it's like, okay, well, I guess we have to stagger it then. And, that's their jobs. I'm not like I'm an idiot at math, so I don't know any of that.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's sound logic to me. Logic to me.
Yeah.
So let me bring up I guess I don't want to call anything the main event here, but like we definitely have to take some time to talk about Bishop's Cove.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. And this thing, it stars Ariel Hope.
No. That was Teresa and Allison. Teresa and Allison stars Ariel.
I'm sorry.
Emily McKinley Hill.
Thank you.
Yes.
But also, I'm gonna fuck up this last name, and I hope she never hears about it because it is so important to me to nail names.
Nana Gouveia?
No. I can nail that one.
Okay.
Sarah
Shoves.
Fuck.
Yeah.
See, I'm glad you did it, not me. I'm glad. I'm a fan of Sarah. Okay, big fan of Sarah.
Yeah.
And like this is a very good cast, man.
Thank you.
It's a very good cast.
Yeah.
And I think both are great. You play a big part in it, but Sarah Shoves is in this film. I'd consider the reason we're here today, and that is Bishop's Cove. Okay, per the Indiegogo page for Bishop's Cove, you finished the principal steps.
Yes.
To make this film a finished product. Okay, and you've kindly allowed me to screen the film, and I'm excited for you to get this thing out there to the masses. So I guess real quick,
just film, isn't it?
It's a little bit messed up, but like after seeing, like this was the last thing I saw though. Okay, like I saw everything else, and then I went with Bishop's Cove, and I really did that because I kind of like the log line a little bit more. Maybe it's just me, thinking, okay, I could do something with with this box, this mystery box. What's in this, besides ashes? A little bit of fuckery, maybe, probably. But tell the listeners real quick, what's Bishop's Cove all about?
Well, Bishop's Cove is the story of a woman named Heather, played by Emily McKinley Hill. And one day she's living a pretty good life. She's actually dating a woman named Kristen, who's played by Sarah Shoves. And one day she's visited by a man named Mr. Lawrence, played by Wayne J. Miller. And he tells her that her long ago, like we're talking 20 years ago, like when she was a homeless punk kid, her girlfriend from that time, a girl named Catalonia, has passed away, played by Anna Paulette. And that, she had no one in her life. And so here are her ashes. Deliver these, please, to her parents. And it's, you know, obviously she has the same questions most of us would. It's like, it's been 20 years. Why would anyone ask me to do this? You know, that makes no sense. I mean, but, you know, you find out that Kat had a very sad life after they broke up. And so, you know, she's kind of feels like it's the right thing to do, to go to this remote town in upstate New York and deliver the ashes to her parents, played by Nana Govea, Robert Asensio, and her sister, also played by Anna Paulette. And when they get there, the fact that, number one, her sister looks exactly like her from 20 years ago is one thing. And then there's something little suspicious about the family. And then she starts having nightmares. She starts having these nightmares where she's like naked in this like hellscape where there's this demon played by my business partner, Chelsea Lesage, the Nameless, who I think she is just terrifying in this movie. Like, just once again, like I love working with Chelsea so incredibly much, not just because like we're you know, so close, but because she is just an amazing actress and an amazing, like, I can just come up with stuff and I know that she will just nail it. And
theater gal.
Yeah, exactly. And
that's so nice.
So
all right, break it up, guys.
I'm Chelsea.
But yeah. So I mean,
I'm in another meeting, but
yeah. But yeah, like it is. You know, and that's the thing. It's a whole mystery as to, and you slowly start peeling back the layers of what happened when they were together and when they were teenagers, and why she feels it's so important for her to go and deliver these ashes. And then also, why is she having these nightmares, and what is the real reason for her being invited up there? And I wanted to make something that was kind of like a serious, I mean, it's definitely a horror film, but it goes into drama, I'd say, a lot in the first like half of it. And then kind of the horror really comes in. It starts coming slowly into it. And then you find yourself in this, you know, world you can't escape at that point. And it's kind of what I really loved about just, number one, the performance of the actors, who were just brave, and just everyone did amazingly in that film. I was also, you know, I'm in 2 scenes, and I was very happy that I had an amazing assistant director, so that I could just be an actor in those scenes. Like, I didn't direct those scenes. My assistant director, Madison Humes, was the one who directed those scenes. And I think she did an amazing job, because we wanted, I mean, every character in that film is just raw, and there's so much in it. And there's so much like about my own, when I was in my early 20s and my dad and I weren't getting along, and I wasn't really getting along with the rest of my family. I was a homeless punk kid for a while, you know, and so many of the characters in it are based on people I knew or things that happened to people. The guy who, you know, when she's a homeless, you know, it's in the first 20 minutes, so I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything. But when we go to a flashback and we see when she was on the street, and there's a guy who solicits her, and when she says no, he starts beating her up until she's rescued by Kat, and that's how they first meet. That was based on girls I knew who had been attacked by, you know, there were 2 different guys in the village that things were happening because of, you know, and so much of it is, it's a very different time now, but I wanted to kind of capture what it was like if you were in that little like weird community where, you know, and then unfortunately a lot of people in that community did, you know, start, you know, because it's also a movie about recovery, you know, and a lot of people in that community did start using heroin. Thankfully, I never did, because I had an uncle who already did it, and that's taught me you don't want any of that. But but I saw, you know, like Kat is loosely based on a friend of mine who the last time I saw her, she was telling me how happy she was that she had been clean for 6 months, and then she was dead of an overdose 2 days later, you know, because she relapsed that night, and you know, in the bathroom of a club of a bar called Mars Bar. That's no longer there now. And, you know, so a lot of that it's based on the reality of what I've experienced and a lot of the people around me. And it's also just a dark, you know, I wanted something that, like I said, kind of, what was it? Emily said this, and I love it. Emily said, "This movie is what would happen if David Lynch directed Hellraiser." And I was like, oh my God, I love that thought.
That's a nice mashup.
Yeah, and that's what it is. I mean, it's influenced by Hellraiser, it's influenced by Silent Hill, it's influenced by Lost Highway, it's influenced by Blue Velvet, it and Requiem for a Dream, and all those kind of, because that's the thing is horror is in, and it's one of the reasons why I have such a love for the genre is because there's so much you can do within the horror genre. There's so many things in the toolbox that you can bring in and just explore. And there is not a subject you can't talk about in horror. Like if you were to, I mean, like Teresa and Allison is, it's an allegory for class inequality, but no one's going to watch it if I make a fucking movie about class inequality. People are like, oh, yeah, 3 fucking film students at NYU would go watch that. But you know what? You fill it with blood and boobs and you make it, and you make this really dark, sexy story around it. People
suddenly there's a message.
Yeah, exactly. And that's with Teresa and Allison with this. It's basically, it's a lot clearer what it's about, but it's still, it's a very important film to me. It's something that I'm very proud of having done. And we have the Indiegogo campaign going on right now for post-production. The address for that is igg.me/at/Bishop's Cove Post. All one word at the end. And we do that because, this has been a film. We've had people, that's the thing. It's you've seen it. It's an extreme film. It's a messed up film, but it's also a film that takes itself seriously and tries to also be an emotional film, and that's hard to do. It's a very hard dance to do, and a lot of times people who are going to contribute money wanted to change too many things, and they wanted to to kind of take away things or soften things, or I had people like, well, why does she have to be a punk? Can't she just be like a suburban kid? Like, well, no, what the hell, that's just a completely different backstory. Jesus. So, and people who are just trying to change things. So we paid for it, some of it out of pocket. We had some horror fans who were very generous to us, who helped us out with production. And we had, we had a couple silent investors who were, really cool about us not changing anything. But it's still, like when you try to make an uncompromising horror film, in this day and age, and you're not trying to make like, something for the Mall of America crowd, it's hard to get funding. It is, especially if you want to do it right. And, you saw some of the practical effects we used in this were like really cool, but really expensive too,
Yeah.
And it was important to me too, that we did stuff practically. We have a little, in the post-production, there's a little VFX, sweetening of some stuff, but it's still 99% practical. And that was super important to me because you don't want that bad PlayStation 1 graphic thing that happens, Speaking of remakes, we were watching me and Chelsea for our podcast, Cinematic Autopsy. We're watching the 2002 remake of Carrie, and the computer graphics in that are
the
horrible.
O2 version. Yes.
Yeah. The computer,
not as popularly known.
Yeah. With Angela Bettis from May.
Yeah, you think about Sissy Spacek, you think about Chloe Moretz. You don't think about that O2 version.
Yeah, exactly.
Very often.
Yeah, with Angela Bettis from May and Catherine Isabel from Ginger Snaps.
Yeah, Catherine Isabel.
Yeah, and produced by Brian Filler, who did Hannibal and the first season of American Gods, and he's doing the Friday the 13th prequel series now.
Yeah, talent wrapped up in that film.
Yeah, and there's some things in there that are really well done, and then there's some things that were like, oh my God, that was no. And the CG was part of it, but even Brian Filler himself says that, they said the studio didn't give us enough money for effects, and yet the network was like, we need more effects. So they were like, well, we don't have money to do it, so it's going to get done cheaply. And even he says it looks cheap. But so that's why I feel practical effects are so very important. It's a lost art. It's and except in horror, like and maybe like stuff like Chernobyl or whatever, but other things really going with like a lot of CG and stuff, and it's kind of sad to see like people not having as much appreciation for that as they should, because worlds that makeup artists are able to create is just, I mean, the Joyless, our character with like the face on the back of her head and the multiple breasts, and just like, oh my God, like that was just so amazing to see that in real life.
Visually stunning.
Yeah.
I love that part of the film.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah. And we were trying real hard to make sure that we had something that people would visually remember. There's a couple sequences that I really hope stick with people, and I really hope just kind of linger in their heads and give them nightmares, because I'm a generally unpleasant person who wants people to have nightmares. But but yeah, so because of that, because it is a film that we tried to not compromise on, we tried to make something for horror fans, with the help of horror fans, and so we have our campaign going on. I think it's going on for another 12 days now, I think, and we need help with sound design and color correction and all that sort of stuff, and as I said, a little bit of VFX, because sometimes it's like, oh, you can see a microphone in the corner, so let's get rid of that in the shot. That's the majority of what our VFX is for. It's not, because the practical effects are great. It's mostly like, oh, you can see that little thing there, let's correct that.
Sure.
Yeah, so that people don't think that we're doing, it's so funny. I remember when the Expendables 2 or something came out, and they were like all just putting all this CG blood into everything. And at the time, I remember joking with one of my friends about how funny it would be if they just did CG blood like everywhere. So like characters talk and blood just starts shooting out of their mouths, and just make it like dead alive and gory. Just with like, if you're gonna put like CG blood in it, just put it everywhere and just make it look like a giant.
Paint the fucking house red.
Yes, exactly. And have the characters not even noticing that there's like blood coming out of their mouths, and the ceiling is dripping blood, and there's blood, like the fish tanks are all filled with blood in the background at some club. But yeah,
they're so drugged up with the killing, they don't know where the blood's coming from.
Exactly. But yeah, so it's a very important film to us, and it's also something I think will be very entertaining. It's also, and Martyrs is also another influence on it too, because I'm very big into that like old, a lot of like foreign horror, like really, because things like The Sadness and Martyrs and all that, where they just go places that a lot of American horror used to be afraid to do, which is also one of the reasons why I said we have problems with funding sometimes, because people don't want to pay for, oh my God, you're doing what in your film?
Yeah, speaking of which, like, I've played a lot of Texas Hold'em in my life. Okay. And one of the hardest decisions to make is to muck your cards when you're, holding a strong hand. Okay. You do that when you think the opponent would have a stronger hand. You've already got money in the pot. You don't want to take the loss, but maybe your opponent's holding a flush and you're only holding trips, but you never get cards. So you think anything I've got is going to win it, right?
Yeah.
Not going to cut it though. Trips isn't going to cut it in that situation. So how hard is it to walk away when you've worked on something for such a while, and when you think you've got the funding, the backing, and they start asking you to change things? And I know that's something that happened because you had this thing funded some time ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it is absolutely heartbreaking when that happens. And it's because this is something that you put your heart and soul into. And, when someone just kind of, we had someone who promised us, I think it was like $8,000 in funding, and then just was like, kind of like, oh yeah, it's going through the bank, blah, 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 blah. And then, pulling a freaking Paul Heyman and ECW, if you really want to get technical about it. And, and then just turned out to be a big fucking con artist, and it really hurt, because what, like, we wouldn't be having to do this if not for that sort of thing, because like I said, like this is the thing, like indie horror, it needs to be supported, it needs to be nurtured by it's the one thing, if you want to keep seeing films, not just ours, like other films, like if you want to keep seeing people, independent horror filmmakers able to go and keep creating things where they're not restricted by what studios want to see, or having to make things that are toned down, or make things that are not true to their own vision. The horror community, and it's one of the reasons I love the horror community, because it's so incredibly supportive. When we did cons for Teresa and Allison, it was amazing just getting to meet people and like, you know, like the, you know, fans of stuff. And like when we screened Teresa and Allison and having people ask me about the canon afterwards. And that was like amazing to me, where people are like, what happens to this character after the film and blah, blah, blah. And we get requests for a sequel to that all the time. And that makes me so happy to hear, you know, but yeah, it hurts when someone basically, you know, pulls the Lucy with the football on you. You know, it really sucks.
And you know, but you've done a good thing here, because you know, speaking of story here, you know, you establish the rules of the story early on, and I think you do a very good job of that. And this is just me speaking from a guy who screened it a few nights ago, and you know, he's talking out of his ass right now. But you establish the rules of the story because, you know, as an addict, we know there's an exploitable weakness in, I believe her name is Heather's armor.
Yes.
And, you know, revisiting the past for so many people can open old wounds.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe Heather's a little more likely to lower guard, just like when someone who gets out of, you know, prison, you know, might fall back into a life of crime unless they, you know, they completely avoid their old running buddies.
Yeah.
Right. It remains to be seen what happens with Heather in the film, but I guess we should really talk about who she meets along the way. Okay. And then we're going to talk about the cast of Bishop's Cove.
Love to.
Let's start off with Emily McKinley Hill.
Yeah.
Okay. This is I guess a return of sorts to film for Heather McKinley Hill. Like the last thing she did that I knew of was Delaware Shore back in 2018, 2017, something like that. Pre-COVID, I know that much.
Yeah.
But how did the casting of Emily happen, and what sealed the deal? What'd you like about her?
Well, Emily has actually been in everything I've ever directed. Like the very first short film that I ever directed, which I think is shit and no one will ever see it, but Emily was in it. Emily had a part in Demon Hunter. Emily has been like, you know, everything I've ever directed, because Emily is just a joy to work with. She's brave and she's fun and she's witty, and she will go there. She will just, you know, just go to the darkest places. And she actually, she did do a film after that. But it hasn't been released because it's a film called, I think it's called Back Road, where it's this so extreme horror film that no festivals even want to show it. So that's why, you know, and Sarah Schoafs is in that too. Sarah Schoafs and her play incestuous hillbilly sisters in that one, which is why.
Is there any other kind of sisters?
Yeah, well, that was one of the things when we were looking to cast Kristen. You know, I was like, well, you guys just, you know, played, you know, incestuous sisters. So I know you're comfortable working together. So let's, you know, and I've worked with Sarah on Teresa and Allison, where she played Allison. So it was, you know, it was great to bring her in. But yeah, Emily's wonderful. Anna Paulette, who plays Catalonia and Sibelia, she was actually a model in Mexico. And she was trying to get into acting. She did a brief part in the third episode of Demon Hunter. And I had written, you know, so Bishop's Cove, we had tried to get it started in, I think, 2018 or 2019. And we had people who were going to like put in like $70,000, and they wanted so many changes that it wouldn't have even been the story anymore. So we're like, fuck it, we're dropping this completely. And so it wasn't until I met Anna that I decided, oh my God, she could be Catalonia. And it just kind of clicked with me when she was just like in a really minor role in Demon Hunter, where I was like, oh my God, she could be the perfect Catalonia and Sibelia. So I talked to her about it, and she was game for it. And, you know, as I said, like everyone in this film is just so incredibly brave and, you know, and just so willing to just go to, like I said, their darkest places. Nana Govea, who I had first met during the Teresa and Allison auditions, and then I know she did Black Wake with Jeremiah.
Yeah,
and
award-winning film down in Brazil.
Yeah, and she and I had wanted to work together for the longest time, and so I kind of wrote the role for her of Marquesa. You know, because and I'll tell you, I mean, there's one scene in the film that obviously I can't say because it'll spoil things, but there's one scene in the film that was not in the original script. I wrote it because she was just nailing it so much, playing that character and just the gravitas she brought to every scene, that like there was one scene that was like, it was really simply written. It was a very not, something happened, blah, blah, blah. But then after seeing her in the other scenes, I'm like, oh my God, I'm writing you all this dialogue for this scene now so that we can really get this performance out of you. And she just nailed it. And she was an amazing person to work with. And as I said, I've already, gone on about Chelsea. We had Kat D. Ross as the Joyless, who is the demon. Kat D. Ross is a model and activist, and she's just an awesome. I also first met her in Teresa and Allison, and she's just an amazing person to work with and a really strong person. Then we had two professional wrestlers playing the Ceaseless, who is that kind of big hulking, like a thing, like it was just like I said, we just had Wayne J. Miller was Mr. Lawrence. We had Kitty Ostapowicz as Chief Deputy McNulty. We had Eric Ensley as Sheriff Rawls. We had Tara Wilson as I'm sorry, not Tara Wilson, Tara Beavers as Deputy Wilson.
Yes.
Yeah. And which, by the way, I'll just say, yes, I did name all the cops after characters in The Wire, just because I had been watching it at the time. So
why wouldn't you? If it's me, I'm naming everybody after the characters I know from 24, all-time favorite TV show.
Oh man, 24. I love 24 up until my favorite season is the season where it became Metal Gear Solid. Which was season 5.
It did become Metal Gear Solid.
Yes, it 100%
became
Metal Gear Solid that season.
And then that fucker Kiefer ended up voicing Snake. So I guess technically Big Boss, but
that was the season where the cast of RoboCop were all the bad guys. And
fucking Peter Weller's
it was Peter Weller and oh my God, what's his face from Twin Peaks? Oh my God. But yeah, like it was. I loved how ridiculous 24 was. 24 was.
Man, he just took that gun and put it right in Peter Weller's wife's leg and pops her off. It's like, God damn it, Jack.
Yes.
Oh,
and then
and
then at the end of the season where you find out the president is being controlled by this cabal, I'm like, it's the fucking Patriots. Holy shit! Directly from
Patriots, man. Listen, it became Metal Gear Solid, and that's why I love the fact that you said this. Listen, that is the wildest shit that ever happened. I actually never gave up on the show. Okay, never gave up on it. I did kind of lose it when they stopped becoming 1 hour episodes that make up an hour in the day.
Yeah, I didn't even watch that season because I was like, that you're killing the concept.
Yeah, you're killing the concept. But when I saw Tony Todd show up for the second time as a different character, I said, God, they just don't give a fuck anymore. Like, first he was like this random ass detective who might be like searching after Jack when he's like an outlaw or something. Yeah. And then all of a sudden he's this African general who's training child soldiers, and Gaz from the Full Monty stepped on a landmine and he can't move. And God, man.
Yeah. 24 was insane. Show. And what I loved
about it was batshit crazy is what it was, Charles.
It really was. Like I'm glad somebody else brought it up because I've never been able to just express to people publicly that the show had just become Metal Gear Solid at that point. So
I'd never heard from someone else other than myself say that 24 was Metal Gear Solid. Yes. And it didn't really at the end when the president's being controlled.
Yes.
Like I was waiting for a scroll, a credit scroll, and then this audio message at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
The president, thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, dun, dun, exactly. Dun. Yeah, I'm like literally at this point they might as well bring in fucking Revolver Ocelot as just like a random character out to kill Jack.
They basically did when they brought back Tony Almeida, who was supposed to be dead as fuck. God, man. And then they dropped that fucking missile on William Devane in the middle of like Fenway Park or wherever the fuck it was, Dodger Stadium.
Yeah.
And God damn it, man. Like it got more and more absurd, but at the same time, more and more fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know
and
what?
by the way, fucking Annie Wershing, the one who played, I believe it was Renee.
Mm-hmm.
I believe she recently just passed at like 45 years old,
Oh
man.
man, yeah, I read that.
Yeah,
It's awful. Yeah.
yeah. I thought, man, like it is ironic because I was just thinking about 24, like going back to binge it,
Mm-hmm.
and here she is, and I did not think that she was 45. I'm 40, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking she's only 5 years older than me.
Yeah, that's really sad
Come
when
on,
people
man.
that age, you know? I mean,
That and Julian Sands lost up in the fucking
oh yeah, no,
mountains.
I really, you know, at this point, it's just getting sadder every day that they don't hear from him, you know, because
Yeah,
it's like,
they've heard from his partner. They've heard from his hiking
oh
partner,
yeah,
apparently, and like nothing from Julian. But you know, I'll digress here. Like your film,
yeah, yeah,
Bishop's Cove, it got made. Okay,
yes,
so the initial funding campaign must have been a success. We've
yes,
relaunched,
mm-hmm.
and we're trying to get some post production, I guess, VFX
VFX,
cleaned up a little bit.
yeah, sound design, and we have an amazing composer, David Denyer, who is not on any of the not in the version you heard, that was all just temporary music on that one, but
Sure.
But yeah, but he's composing a full like hour and a half score for the film, and like, you know, it's he's just and it's like fully orchestrated and everything. It's gonna be like you know, some of the stuff we put out a little like 1 minute sample of what he did for what he's doing for us, and it was just this haunting violin piece that like is just so, you know, like I said, like the emotions that he's able to summon in the score that he's made. But you know, but that's part of post, is being able to pay him, which, you know, we can because of where we're at currently, but we still need to be able to pay for other things, you know. And
there's a goal for a reason.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And then even one of the things that we also you know, were looking for was a little money to help with festival submission, because festivals are not cheap. You know, a lot of people don't realize that you have to pay for every festival submission you do, and then if it doesn't, even if they don't pick you, you still have to pay them. You know, like it's kind of crazy.
You're paying for consideration.
Yeah, exactly. How much money you end up spending on festivals. So we factored in a little bit of the campaign just to be able to pay for festival submissions and stuff. But yeah, it's super important for us to be able to do that, because if we don't make our goal, it'll still come out, but it'll come out a lot later, because we're gonna have to, you know, be going out of pocket and going with, you know, still looking for like investors, and, you know, hopefully not running into any scumbags. And, you know, we'd really like to also be able to start working on other projects too at the same time. You know, we have a lot of stuff that we'd like to be, you know, doing and getting this out there while working on other things. I have another film I just started working on called Nowhere Fast, which is about an all-female punk band from New York City who basically run into the apocalypse on the first day of their first tour. And it's just a really once again, a really just wild and insane and fucked up story, because that's kind of my thing. But yeah, like Bishop's Cove. So if you want to contribute to our Indiegogo, once again, I said it before, but the address is igg.me/at/Bishop's Cove Post. Once again, igg.me/at/Bishop's Cove Post. We have all sorts of
that's
fun.
That's going to be in the I'm sorry to cut you off there, Charles.
No
this is going to be in the episode description. So don't think you've got to memorize this. It will be in the episode description on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Pods, Google Pods, iHeart, everywhere. Look in the description of this episode and find that Indiegogo campaign and help get this thing made.
Yeah. Thank you. And it's, sure, you know, we have all sorts of cool perks. I mean, besides like DVDs and Blu-rays and posters and stuff like that, we have signed scripts. We have, you can play Dead by Daylight with Chelsea or I, just because, you know, we thought like, well, it's a horror related thing, and I love playing.
We're going to be doing it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So let's have people come in there and do that. They have executive producer and associate producer credits. We have just all sorts of different, you know, we have actually 2 of the practical effects from the Joyless are for executive producers. We have the face she had on the back, and we had the like, I think it was like 5 breasts like prosthetic. And also there's a character who gets shot in the head, and we have the prosthetic for their the gunshot wound. So, you know, we have a whole bunch of cool stuff for people if they want to contribute. And, you know, as I said, it really, you'd be helping a good cause. You'd be helping support indie horror, and you'd be helping, you know, to make a film that you'll probably, well, I'm not going to say it's like a, you know, oh man, I can't wait to watch this over and over again and feel good about myself, because you're not going to feel good about yourself.
You're going to
But
feel
you
terrible.
will. Yeah, but you know what? You're gonna get a movie that's gonna fucking grab you by the fucking balls, and you're gonna be like, the fuck, man. Like, until it's over, you know. I think one of the best things anyone said, one person we screened it for was like, I think I have to go watch a comedy now. So, because yeah, and I'm like, I love that.
That's the ultimate testament.
Yeah.
That's how you know.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing.
How you know.
Yeah, is that's you know, that was the movie we were trying to make, and you know, we managed to make what we wanted, and now we just have to get a little bit more so we can go and get it out to people. And I really want to be part of the 2023 festival circuit in the summer and the spring. I mean, summer and fall, so that we can show this as many places as possible and as many people as they can come and view it, and you know, get a chance before it goes to, you know, Blu-ray and streaming and all that sort of stuff. And like early 2024 is the goal. Depending on obviously if we make the Indiegogo, you know.
Sure. And we hope that, you know, any eyes that are on this podcast right now can reach out, help make this thing a reality. We want to see you in that festival circuit. And if you make your way around the Nashville area, all you got to do is yell. I'll be there in a heartbeat.
I'll definitely let you know.
Absolutely. So before we slide into the gag reels, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on your socials?
Sure. I can be found mostly on Instagram at charles.d.lincoln. And you can also find the production company that Chelsea and I do, CL Squared Productions, because it's Charles Lincoln and Chelsea Lesage. We're both CLs. And that's CL Squared Productions on Instagram. And Bishop's Cove itself has its own Instagram, Bishops_Cove, no apostrophe. So yeah, you can check that out. And yeah, so, you know, feel free to add us, feel free to check out the campaign. And, you know, as I said, we love being part of the horror community. And, you know, we hope people reach out, and we hope people help out, and we hope that we can, you know, contribute a little to the community ourselves, you know.
That is going to do it for this episode of Slasher Sports Cinema. Go click those links. Visit the episode description. Find every one of them. Go follow Charles D. Lincoln, Chelsea Lesage, Bishop's Cove, and all those involved in the project. And most importantly, go forth and may you drink the blood of your enemies from the skulls of their children.
All right.